Alright, hello and welcome to the first edition of the Designated Hitter, where we talk trades, rumors, and news across the league. Alright, so first up is the Houston Astros. They made a couple signings this week. They re-signed Michael Brantley, their left fielder, who returning to left field, probably hitting second in their lineup again. And they also signed Jason Castro, catcher, to a 2-year, $7 million deal. He was formerly with the Astros to start his career, so he'll be rejoining his old organization and being plugged, I think, with a platoon situation with Martin Maldonado, I would assume. So, hey, they're good moves for the Houston Astros. I still think that they need a couple more pieces here and there if they want to continue their dominance in the American League. I think they have a couple ways that they can go. Let's take a look at their rotation here real quick. Now, I have them going down the route of keeping Framber Valdez, who was really successful this past year. In order to have a successful bullpen, I think you need to have two lefties, just to keep the balance in the bullpen. I think, to not tire one out, you need two lefties that you can rely on in your bullpen on a daily basis. So with moving Framber Valdez back to the bullpen, I have them signing James Paxton, the big maple, to plug right in behind Verlander and Greinke. I think he'd be a good number 3, and then they can fill out the rest of the rotation however they want. McCullers, Jose Urquidy, Josh James, Christian Javier. I also have them sign because they need, if they keep Framber in the bullpen, they're going to need another lefty to kind of lighten the load for Valdez, and I think that ex-Diamondback Andrew Chaffin, the Sheriff, would be great to plug in there almost as like an 8th inning lefty. It'd be a good weapon that Dusty Baker could use at his disposal. So, a couple additions to their pitching staff. They already signed Ryan Stanek, who I think is going to be a huge addition to their bullpen, and Pedro Baez as well. He maybe will save some games, maybe if Ryan Presley needs relief. Already some good pieces. If they can make some additional left-handed signings, Paxton and Chafin, I think that their window would stay open, I think, a little bit longer than people think there in the AL West. Now, just moving to their lineup real quick, I think it's no surprise to anybody. I think that a good fit to plug in that center field to replace George Springer would be Jackie Bradley Jr., obviously. I mean, he's a good defender. He's a left-handed bat that they need. They're really right-handed heavy. I think it's just a matter of time before Jackie Bradley signs that contract in Houston. I think he needs to if he wants to win another ring. So I think those 3 moves, which are, I would think, affordable for Houston, would be 3 key pieces, maybe under-the-radar pieces that are good for a team like them to keep their dominance going in the American League. So next to maybe the biggest signing of this past week, George Springer to the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, that lineup is already dominant with the 3 franchise, Biggio, Guerrero, and Bichette. So just adding power-hitting leadoff guy to that lineup just makes the lineup even more deep. They can now move Gritchett to a bench role, off the bench role, power-hitting right-hander off the bench. They can fill the outfield with Springer, Hernandez, Gurriel Jr., which is not a bad outfield. Possibly need a first baseman if they don't want to put Rowdy Tellez at first, which I don't think he's not too bad at first base. You can still pick it a little bit, but he might be a natural DH. But if you have to put him at first base, I don't think that matters too much. So with that said, I think their lineup is pretty much set in stone. Maybe a DH first baseman to help Rowdy. Maybe someone like Tyler Naquin to fill, to relieve, some out. He can play DH. He can relieve maybe Teoscar or Gurriel, or just move everybody around. Maybe put Gurriel at third, move Vladdy over to first, relieve Rowdy, put him at DH, something like that. But I think for some reason, I think Naquin would be a good fit there in Toronto, maybe a low cost, so they can spend some money somewhere else. So now moving on to their pitching, their rotation and their bullpen's tricky. Just like Houston, they got a couple ways that they can go. So, as their rotation stands right now, it's Ryu at the top, as it should be. Tanner Roark is still on with them, who's not bad. Ross Stripling, Robbie Ray from the Diamondbacks. If he can, regain a little bit of his form, he'll be pretty good. They could use Yamaguchi in the starting rotation if they need to, just fill some depth. But they did sign Kirby Yates, which I think is going to be under the radar, huge signing of the whole offseason. I think he's great. He'll continue his rise. So they plug him in the closer spot. As of right now, I don't really see anybody in the setup role. They'd have to go out and get somebody. And the rest of their bullpen, especially if they use Yamaguchi in the rotation, their bullpen's really thin. They don't really have any lefties at all. Maybe Meza if he comes back. And they don't really have any righties either. They can plug the rookie phenom Nate Pearson in there unless they use him in the rotation as well. But I see him to start off more as a dominant bullpen piece, just pumping 100 plus. Maybe he can be the setup guy if they don't go out and sign anybody. Some names that I think that the Blue Jays can go out and get to fill, just like the Astros, just some under the radar little pieces that they can plug in that would put them over the top of where they should be going this year. Obviously if they get Trevor Bauer, any team would be that much better with Trevor Bauer. But let's just say they miss out on Trevor Bauer. I think if they could sign some under the radar picks, one name comes to mind, Trevor Williams, the ex-Pittsburgh Pirate, who they I think released or designated earlier. If they could find a way to maybe pry him from Pittsburgh, if he's not already a free agent, I can't remember if he's in the free agency or if he just is still with Pittsburgh. But I think he has some really good starts with Pittsburgh towards the end there. You can plug him in the 3 or 4 hole behind Roark, Ray, Ryu, maybe another lefty to go in the rotation of Mike Montgomery, the old Cub and Royals. He's always been a pretty reliable pitcher, mostly for the bullpen, but I think they can maybe start him in. Or if they wanted to use him in the bullpen to plug one of those lefties that I was talking about that they needed so bad. Now, to address the bullpen, I think some names that would help go along with Yates and maybe Pearson if they decide to start the young kid in the bullpen. Players like Nate Jones, the old Chicago White Sox closer, Jeremy Jeffries, who just had an all-star year, I think a couple years ago with Milwaukee. To go along with the trend of picking up old Pirates pitchers, Keona Kela, I think could be a setup man or just 7th inning guy in Toronto, maybe behind Kirby Yates and Pearson or Kirby Yates and Jones or Jeffries or someone like that. Like I said, a good lefty could be a Mike Montgomery, and actually a sneaky good under-the-radar lefty pick could be Atlanta Braves' old Grant Dayton, who had a pretty good year last year along with him and Minter and Tyler Matzek. I think the Blue Jays are going in a good direction with the Springer and Yates. They also signed Tyler Chatwood as well to go in to the bullpen, so that's a good bullpen piece. Or a swingman, a five or swingman in the rotation. They got a couple of ways they can attack the rest of their offseason, just like the Astros do. But if you ask me, I think a Nate Jones, Keona Kela type, Jeremy Jeffries, Trevor Williams of the world, they would be great filled in as the plug-in pieces to the Blue Jays, who obviously already spent pretty big in Springer and Yates. So I think they're pretty set. So staying in the division, and maybe the biggest splash of the week, the New York Yankees made some moves, signing Corey Kluber, a former 2-time Cy Young Award winner with the Cleveland Indians, and re-signing DJ LeMahieu, notably probably the best hitter on the free agent market this year, goes back to the Bronx. And they made a huge trade with the Pittsburgh Pirates for Jameson Taillon. Notably, Pittsburgh Pirates ace of the last couple years. He's had some injury problems, but still, it's a huge. If both Taillon and Kluber can get healthy, I think that makes the Yankees that more dangerous. So as we take a look here at the Yankees pitching staff, we'll take a look at their pitching staff first. Top of their rotation, Cole, Severino, and then the newly acquired Taillon and Corey Kluber. I would think that unless they want to plug maybe a Jordan Montgomery in at the 5 spot, which wouldn't be too bad of a 5th man. He had a great year last year, huge curveball. But if they decided maybe to go with Montgomery in the bullpen because they're a little thin and left-handed relief pitching, I think they need to go out and get another starting pitcher. I think everybody could agree that Masahiro Tanaka would be a great re-sign for them. He's done nothing but dominate for the Yankees ever since he signed with them, a couple years ago, more than a couple years ago. So I think maybe if with a Masahiro Tanaka plugged in there in the middle, they can move Jordan Montgomery to the bullpen as maybe a long relief or one of the lefties behind Britton and Chapman. With that said, I think that the bullpen is probably the weakest part of the Yankees pitching now, since they just traded this morning Adam Ottavino to the rival Red Sox. That's just another bullpen piece that's now not with the organization anymore. So I think the Yankees bullpen, as of right now, you have Chapman as a closer, obviously, Britton as the setup man again, which that's not too bad. But they need another lefty. If they plug Jordan Montgomery in the bullpen, let's just say they re-sign Tanaka and plug Jordan Montgomery in the bullpen, they still need a couple pieces. Domingo Germán is coming back, assuming, unless they plug him into the rotation, he hasn't pitched in a year. They might try him in the bullpen, which would make more sense just to get him going. So they have him. They have Chad Greed, which aren't they're not bad middle relievers. But to keep their dominance in the American League, they're going to need the dominant bullpen that they've had in the past. And right now, aside from Britton and Chapman, it's just not there. They don't. They need to make some signings too. I think that some players, they have a plethora of people that they can get. Alex Colomé, Mark Melancons. They need to make some signings like that. Tony Watson, Mark Melanson, maybe a Steve Cishek wouldn't be bad. Player like a Cam Bedrosian, Brandon Workman wouldn't be bad. Shane Green, if he went back to the Bronx. You know what? I have him going somewhere else, but if the Yankees can somehow make a deal for Roberto Osuna to plug that in as the setup man, have him and Chapman 8-9, Britton 7, 7-8-9 would be Britton, Osuna, Chapman, and pinstripes, and that that wouldn't be too bad. I have Osuna going somewhere else, and we'll get to that in another segment. Players like that, wouldn't be bad. If they can bring David Robertson back, he had success in New York. If they can bring someone like that back, maybe that could work. Maybe if they can bring in Trevor Rosenthal. I forgot that he's still available. If the Yankees can bring in a Trevor Rosenthal and make a mix of a 7-8-9 Britton, Rosenthal, Chapman, I think they just need one top tier reliever, like we said, like an Osuna, like a Rosenthal. Someone of that caliber, Colomé, someone like that, who I have Colomé going somewhere else as well. We'll get to that in a later segment. Aside from that, I think the Yankees, their lineup is set. I think their lineup is set, especially since re-signing LeMahieu. I think there's really not another position player that they really need. Their lineup is back to the way it was. I think maybe if they could re-sign, I have Brett Gardner, moving on to a different team, but if they could re-sign a Gardner, that'd be huge. They did re-sign Greg Allen, which I think he has some good baseball left in him. You can plug him in the 9-hole to hit, but he's a great defender, speed, steal you a bag. Or if you want to go with the platoon of Frazier and Talkman for a little bit more offense, it's not a bad problem to have. Or you can re-sign a Brett Gardner, and it would make the lineup even, that much stronger and more depth. Well, like I said, I have Gardner. Moving on. That's all for the first edition of the Designated Hitter. Tune in next time. We'll be going over more shit.